What's up? It's your boy Kay, and I'm here with Isaac. Say hi to the people, Isaac.
Hello to the people.
We are back with the Kay and Isaac podcast, Sports and Goal, episode number 5.
Number 5.
And we're going to start this episode off as we always do. So what are we drinking today, Isaac?
We got the Metazoa Brewing Company. It's brewed right down downtown Indianapolis. They're a big sponsor of the Indy 11 soccer team. This is called Mastiff Hops. So it's an India Pale Ale. Let's try it out.
India Pale Ale.
Yeah. It's any good. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
The viewers. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's not bad. It almost reminds me of the Three Floyd Zombies one.
A little bit. Yeah, it's got that feel to it. According to this, drink beer, help animals. So I don't know if part of their mission is to give money back to shelters, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to do a little research on that one.
All right.
That's good. Good.
Okay, so as we always start off, we are going to get into our game picks from last week.
Let's start with NCAA football. So big week because it really started to determine where the bracket was going to go. So A lot of interesting games, a lot of interesting matchups. So we had number 7 Georgia, who was 10-2 at plus 124 at Texas, who was 11-1 minus 148. We both picked Texas, and they did not get it.
What a shocker!
Yeah.
What a shocker!
It was a good game. I mean, it was a really good game. Georgia ended up winning 22-19, so I don't think it was as high scoring as everybody maybe expected.
Yeah.
And the defense was...
We'll get into it later.
They were in it. Yep. So we both lost that one.
Yep.
Number 4 Penn State 11-1. They were at plus 145 odds at number 1 Oregon 12-0. This would get them to 13-0, and they got the job done. A lot closer than we thought, but
we both had Oregon though.
Yeah,
obviously.
Both picked them. 13-0. Good for them. We'll see what they can do in the playoffs. Then the last one. Great game. Number 12 Clemson 9-3. They were the underdog at number 9 SMU, and Clemson pulled it off. End of the game.
Yeah, you had Clemson. I had SMU.
Yep.
It's fine. Every dog loses one.
Clemson won 34-31. Credible end. We'll talk about that later, but pretty good game.
So getting into the NBA. Last Wednesday, the Pacers, 9-12, went on to take the Nets at 9-13. Now, I told you last week, Isaac. Isaac still had faith in the Pacers. I was done rooting for the Pacers. And the Nets won 99-90.
I have like 10% faith in the Pacers now. They're just going down every day. It's getting worse and worse.
So last Thursday, the Nuggets, who are 10-8, went on to take on the Cavs, who are 18-3, which Cavs have been tearing it up this season. So both of us picked the Cavs to win, and they did, 126-114. And then finally on Saturday, the Grizzlies, who are 14-7, went to take on the Celtics, who are 17-4. And the Celtics have been tearing it up.
Yeah.
So we both decided to pick the Celtics, and with our luck, the Grizzlies won it 127-121. So we both lost that one.
Yep. And then NFL picks, we had Thursday Night Football. Great game between the Packers and the Lions. And the Lions ended up pulling that one off. I mean, it was a close game, 34-31. We both picked the Lions, so we got it right.
Yep.
But great game. Sunday, the Chargers played at the Chiefs. Chiefs by 2. I mean, they barely pulled that game off. Now, I picked the Chargers because I thought that they'd actually do pretty well at home. And that's, they would go in and actually surprise the Chiefs, and they did not. But you had the Chiefs, so you got that one. That's good. And then Monday Night Football just happened last night. Bengals at the Cowboys, and Bengals won.
Yeah.
Not by a lot, but they won 27-20, and we both got that one. So here's our updated records. I am at 19-17. You are at 22-14. That's a pretty good little ratio there.
+3 margin right there.
Yep.
I'll take it. So let's go ahead and get into the NFL. I obviously want to start off with a team that's been doing great towards the second half of the season. Okay, that's an unbiased opinion. I think everyone would agree. The Steelers beat the Browns 27-14 to move on to 10-3. In that game, Wilson threw for 158 yards, which is not that impressive, but it was a pretty conservative game. He had 2 touchdowns. The real stat line here was Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren combining for 100 yards, and Najee had a touchdown. And the Steelers' defense only gave up 2 touchdowns, one in the first half, one in the second half, and they had 3 sacks and 2 interceptions. The Browns' defense, obviously they gave up 27 points, 2 of those field goals with 3 touchdowns. But they only had 1 sack, no turnovers. And that 1 sack was by Myles Garrett. I mean, he's the reigning defensive player of the year. Obviously, you're not going to be able to hold him the entire game. But obviously, they had a way better game plan for Garrett in this game than they did in the last game. Which, last game, I mean, we kind of talked about it. George Pickens even said it in his post-game interview. Like, the Browns really suck. They just beat them because of the weather conditions. The last game that we had, which was in Cleveland, it was a freaking blizzard out there.
It was.
And so it was pretty sloppy ball, and they ended up beating us. Yeah, it's fun to watch for sure. But
Captain Positive on the other side for their quarterback.
But, I mean, if you're going to have a team that shouldn't be beating you, those are the conditions for a team like that. And I think the Browns coming back to the Steelers stadium and, with decent weather for the most part, the Steelers showed them that it was more of a fluke that they beat us the first time. That's why we handled them the second time. So, I mean, the Steelers' upcoming stretch, 4 games left.
Tough. Very tough.
So, first up, this next week, we have the Eagles. After the Eagles, we have the Ravens. After the Ravens, the Chiefs. So, those are the 3 hard games. And then we take on the Bengals, which we usually always have the Bengals number, but you can never really count them out because that's a shootout type of game. So our offense is going to have to get it going, and we know our defense is going to show up, but the question is, will our offense show up? That's always the question. But with the Eagles, I mean, the Eagles, they've been winning, yes, but they've had a little turbulence. And the most recent news coming out of that locker room is how the wide receivers, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they're not necessarily happy with Jalen Hurts. And it's because he's not necessarily seeing them open down the field. He's not necessarily getting them the ball for every opportunity they have to do so. But you have a Saquon Barkley on your team. I mean, I don't know. I really don't want to touch the drama of what's going on in the Eagles locker room right now. Eagle fans are calling for Jalen Hurts to get traded. They don't necessarily want him anymore.
Jeez.
I think with all of that turbulence going on, Steelers have a decent shot at beating them this week. And, I mean, we're still on fire. Our offense is showing up every week. Our defense, if there is a defense that's going to stop, and that goes for these other games too. Obviously, we always have the Ravens number. Even though they're a good team, always have the Bengals number. But when it comes to the Eagles and it comes to the Chiefs, these 2 teams are very high-powered when it comes to their offense. Now, the Chiefs, they're just weird. I mean, they just find ways to win games. Sometimes their defense steps up. Sometimes it is the offense. But I think if there's a team in the entire league that can beat those teams, it is the Steelers. So I'm still fairly confident going forward.
Most people, though, when they look at that schedule, I will tell you, most teams could easily go 0-4 in that route. I mean, play the Eagles are tough, Ravens are tough, Chiefs are tough, Bengals, they just score a lot of points, and Burrow's having an unbelievable season.
Most teams, but Steelers aren't most teams this year.
And that's the question, is can they make a good run at the end to really put themselves in a great spot for the playoffs? Or will they hiccup a few of these, and that really kind of puts them at that 5 or 6 or 7 spot, and that doesn't really benefit them as much. That'll be interesting. Interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, like I said, I have faith. I agree with you. Most teams in the NFL, they could go, I would say, 3-1. The Bengals are a pretty easy team I think, according to the rest of... I mean, the Cowboys almost beat them the other night, which we'll get into here in a second. But the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Chiefs... The Ravens, we always have their numbers, so with that one, I'm a lot more confident. But the main two I'm looking at, the Eagles and the Chiefs. And I think we are like one of maybe 2 or 3 other teams in the NFL that have a solid shot at taking those teams out. So next up, let's go ahead and talk about the Bills game. So the Bills just lost to the Rams 44 to 42.
That's such a bizarre game, very high scoring. The stat that just blows my mind, well, there's 2. Let's just put it that way. Josh Allen scored all 6 touchdowns for the Bills. So
3 rushing,
3 passing touchdowns, which is that's an incredible stat.
Superman.
Yep. And they tried to make a run at the very end. I mean, they had 21, I think, going into the fourth. Then they scored 21 in the fourth quarter. So I mean, you saw the push, but it was just too late, and for whatever reason, they couldn't stop the Rams' offense.
Yeah,
I know Rams are good, but
they're underrated for sure.
Yeah, but to score 44 on the Bills, I think that made the Bills look bad. I'll be honest with you. I think that makes people put in question: are they gonna make the run that everybody's thinking they're going to?
Yeah. I mean, the other stat right here that stuck out to me is NFL teams that score at least 6 touchdowns with 0 turnovers are 245-0 in the Super Bowl era, including playoffs. Until the Bills just made it 245-1.
So they had 0 turnovers, 6 touchdowns, and they still lost the game.
Now, that's a shootout if I've ever heard one.
Yeah. That's
definitely a shootout game. But that's a crazy stat. So, I mean, yeah. Does this show, does that Bills defense right now, are they showing other teams in the league that they are beatable? They're not the super team everyone thinks they are.
Yeah. Well, I think what you do if you're any other team that plays them the rest of the season is you go back and you watch the film on this game. What did the Rams do to hold them? Now, obviously, they still scored 42 points, so it's not like they just trounced them by any means, but still, you held them enough to where you could win the game. What did they do, and how did they hold them to it? And then you also watch, okay, but how in the world did he get 3 rushing touchdowns? Do you need to put a spy on him? You need to, contain. What do you got to do to keep him from getting that? Some of them, I think, were close yardage runs when they were in the red zone, but still, that shouldn't be happening with the quarterback. I mean, ever. In my opinion, you should be able to watch that and be able to adjust to that offense. But I don't know. I think it proves that they are beatable. I think it does throw up the question of how far they're going to make it in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. We'll definitely have to see. I think that, it's easier said than done to keep Josh Allen, who's freaking 6'5", 240 pounds, and runs like a running back.
He's a big man.
He's trucking people. He's hurdling people. Man. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Cam Newton in his prime.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's like that's a hard
takedown,
hard obstacle to overcome. Yeah. And then finally, let's go ahead and get into what we mentioned before, this Cowboys game. They lost to the Bengals. They lost to the Bengals.
In a horrible way.
Yeah. So, game's tied near the end of the game. The Bengals punt the ball, right? When they punt the ball, a Cowboys player jumps, blocks the punt. Oh, amazing play. They're going to get the ball on their side of the field. They're going to run out the clock. They're going to kick the field goal. Cowboys win. Nope. After he blocks the punt, the ball trickles down the sideline, and a Cowboys player decides to try and pick it up, to try and run it back. Instead of, trying to fall on it or just getting away. You don't have to touch it. Yeah. If you don't touch it,
it's a dead ball.
It's a dead ball. Right. Bengals touch it, it's Cowboys ball where it's placed.
Yeah.
He decides to pick up the ball, or at least try to pick up the ball, fails at it. A Bengals player recovers. It is now the Bengals ball. They go on to kick a field goal to win the game. I mean,
it's like Leon Lett all over again. Back in the Cowboys days, you probably don't remember that because you're too young, but similar situations. It's holiday game, and he goes down and he touches a ball that he shouldn't have and ends up losing the game for him. I mean, it's just stupid plays after stupid plays when it comes to the Cowboys. And I don't feel sorry for him one bit because we get tired of talking about him every single time. But the other point that we got to look at is the fact that Joe Burrow continues to have solid games. So same thing with Jamar Chase. Great offense. I mean, they're killing it. Like, these numbers are insane. 369 yards, 3 touchdowns for Burrow. Jamar Chase had 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. And yet you still only win by, what was it, by 7?
Yeah, they won by a touchdown, not a field goal.
27-20. So you have all those stats and numbers, and you're moving the ball, and you can score, and yet you're still only winning by 7. And most of their games have been that close. I think even all the ones that they've lost. Yeah. So the question is it really the Bengals defense is just that bad? I mean, they're just that bad. Reminds me almost of the Colts offense when Manning used to play, and we had unbelievable offense. So we had to outscore everybody because our defense couldn't do anything. So I mean, how does Burrow continue to put up these numbers but then struggle to win games?
Yeah, I mean, you got to put it on the defense of the Bengals to go ahead and up it. Now, obviously, I'm a Steelers fan, so I could care less if they make those improvements or not. I enjoy the fact that whenever the Steelers go in to take on the Bengals, it is a shootout that we are actually able to participate in, because if there's a weak point of the Steelers, it's the offense.
Yeah.
And so even the fact of last week when we had that shootout with them and we were able to outscore them somehow, I think that speaks to how bad that Bengals defense is. So I mean, I feel bad for Joe Burrow. I feel bad for Jamar Chase. I think this offseason, the Bengals really have to hit the draft picks, hit the free agency, and make some changes on that defensive end. I mean, I can't even really name you any players on that defense. I know Hendrickson is a solid DN for him, but other than that, I think they have somebody at corner. I forget his name, but he used to play for the Steelers. I think they lost Jesse Bates, who was their all-pro safety. But other than that, I don't know him. I don't know anybody. I know a lot of players in the NFL, but when it comes to the Bengals defense, a lot of no-names over there. So I think it shows every week.
Yeah. You know what's even worse? Joe Burrow's house got broken into during that game.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Listen, I don't understand this. I don't make a bunch of money, but I would think if I'm making millions of dollars, I'm going to have ADT or whatever on all my windows, doors, and if somebody breaks in, it sets the alarm off and sends the police over.
Well, here's the thing.
Why do they not have that?
They did. There was actually a police officer that was stationed outside the home whenever it got burglarized. Yeah.
Well,
so, I didn't look too much into this. I was watching the Pat McAfee show and they were talking about it a little bit. You know, that's a plug for you, Pat McAfee. You're welcome.
Yeah, you need it, obviously.
But they basically said that there was a police officer that was out front, and the burglar had broken into his bedroom window, like on the other side of the house. And they only stayed in the room. They like completely trashed the room. I think they tried to steal a TV or something. I might just be making that up, but
still no motion sensors on windows. I mean,
motion sensors?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
but whenever it had happened, there was a woman inside the house, which I don't think it was like his wife or anybody in his family. There was somebody who was in the house. Yeah, and she called the cops and reported it immediately.
You know what the police officer was doing? He's probably watching the game.
Watching the Bengals game.
Watching the game.
Probably. But that's
needs to be fired.
That's something that's reoccurring. Patrick Mahomes had his house burglarized?
Yeah, multiple NFL players.
Yeah, that's been a thing. And, you know, it makes, if there's someone that you know who is rich and valuable and somehow you figure out where they live, and you know Sunday during this time the Bengals are on the road to take on yada yada.
Yeah.
You know, it makes sense. But if you have all that money, you should be having an armed security guard on the premises of your household.
Guard dog, something.
Yeah. Something for sure.
Crazy.
So that is crazy. All right, let's get into our first segment. Show them the money.
Show them the door.
So we're going to start off here with show them the money. Here recently, our savior of Indiana Fever basketball.
No, don't stop there.
The savior of the WNBA itself.
Don't even stop there.
The savior of all white girls in America.
No.
No, not
I'll
that
just
one?
say women's sports in general.
Okay, we'll go with that one. Women's sports in general. Caitlin Clark
Yes.
wins the Times Athlete of the Year.
You can't argue with that.
I mean, she's phenomenal. So, I found a quote, a December 3rd article from Dana Hunsinger, Benbow, which that's a funny last name, Benbow, of Indianapolis Star. The quote says, total TV viewership due to Clark is up 300%, and 45% of total broadcast value came from Fever games.
That's crazy.
And then finally, the league's merchandise sales catapulted 500% with Clark ranking number 1.
Yep.
Number 2 was Angel Reese, which the other thing that I would like to mention with Caitlin Clark, obviously, is that last year, 2024, she won the Rookie of the Year, and it was almost unanimous, but one voter voted for Angel Reese.
Which should not have happened.
I don't know.
But here's the thing. Nobody, and I'm not saying this to be negative on the WNBA. I'm really not. But you watch the product they were producing, and people were not interested. I mean, they were losing millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars every single year. They were subsidized by the NBA, so that's why they were able to stay in play. But when you would look at the stadiums, empty. I mean, there was like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people there. When you're talking about a $15,000, $16,000, $70,000 or 1,000 people stadium, you're not. That's not good numbers. Mm-hmm. And then now you go to where Caitlin Clark was actually forcing teams to go to bigger stadiums because they were able to sell more tickets.
Yeah.
Now I went to a couple, maybe just one. I think just one Fever game, but it was sold out, and the crowd was into it. I mean, it was loud. It was a ruckus place, and you can't say it's any other reason than her. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, even when they have away games, you'll have these teams that are doing their overall attendance has been rising up a little bit, but when she goes to these cities, all of a sudden they're sold out. And it's the Caitlin Clark effect.
Yeah.
You know, me and you were talking before we started the podcast, like Caitlin Clark's impact reminds me, it gives me shades of when Magic Johnson entered the league. And obviously Magic Johnson, he had his Larry Bird over in the East, and that's kind of like what Angel Reese is to Caitlin Clark. You know, it's kind of like this feud, and nowadays everyone wants to be polite, so they wouldn't say that they're enemies. They wouldn't say that that's my rival or anything like that. I think it's very obvious that Angel Reese is a little jealous of all the attention Caitlin Clark is getting.
Extremely jealous.
But what they have going on right now, the Angel Reese versus the Caitlin Clark, which she's right over in Chicago, and obviously Caitlin Clark's here in Indianapolis. They're right next to each other. I think that's going to be a rivalry that can potentially give the WNBA that push to try and get it to where, you know, they don't need the NBA to be propping it up anymore. Yeah. They can do it on their own. They can, build their own following.
And that pays players better. I mean, it does lots of different things for them to where it makes people want, like, women to go play.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm most... Yeah. That's the impact I hope to see most is the participation of basketball with female youth increasing. And I think this is something that could potentially do that. I mean, everywhere you look, any girl that loves basketball has a Clark jersey. Yeah. And I love it a lot. So show them the money to Caitlin Clark. Congratulations on your Times Athlete of the Year.
Yes, that is awesome. And you were just on a show with David Letterman. It hasn't come out yet. They went to Long's Bakery. We're over here, actually. And did a little episode there. So, yeah, I'm sure it's one of his shows that's on my next guest is or something like that. I have a very controversial show him the door. And that's why I'm wearing my Cubs shirt, because it's baseball related. So I'm going to show him the door to the New York Mets.
Ooh.
Now, listen. I want to explain kind of what's going on here. So if you haven't seen it, Juan Soto, who played for the Yankees, has now signed a new contract with the New York Mets. 15 years.
15
years. Let me say that one more time. 15 years. $765 million.
Sheesh.
The largest sports contract in the history of sports. 15 years, 765, so a little over $50 million a year. Okay, now when you spread it out, $50 million a year, you have other players that have done that. I think Steph Curry's been in that category. LeBron's been in that category. I'm sure there's other baseball players. I mean, Judge might even be in that category. But that's the part that I struggle with. And I just, when that contract is up, yes, there's contingencies in it. Okay, he can get out after 5 years. They can get out if they pay him so much over a certain amount of years, and so on and so forth. But let's just say that he stays the full 15 years. That means he will be 41 years old when that contract's over.
Old man.
Now, I understand that baseball it's got a wear and tear on your body, but it's not like a football where you can play to your 41 because you're getting hit every single play. In this case, I mean, it's just your body just wears down. You can't keep playing any sport, really, when you're after that age. It just makes it much more difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. But to commit yourself to a guy who is, yes, he's a great defender, great baseball player all around. He's a great defender. He can hit really well. He is intimidating when he gets up in the batting box. And so when people don't really want to pitch to him, I understand this. But when you have committed to 15 years to a player, you know he's going to get hurt. You know he's going to sit out games. You know he's going to... I mean, the injuries by themselves are going to be a problem because that's the way it is for any baseball player. And you're committing that amount of money every single year to where you cannot get that out of your cap. I mean, that's you're committed.
Yeah.
And I believe it said that his deal is 100% guaranteed.
100% guaranteed.
I'll have to check it, and you fact check me, but I'm pretty sure that's what it said.
That's crazy.
So I don't know. I know you're not huge into baseball, but am I overreacting?
Well, here's what I'll say. I did see something when this contract came out that said the Pittsburgh Penguins have not committed over $760 million. Or Pirates, my bad. We're talking baseball. The Pittsburgh Pirates have not paid its players in the last 7 years over $750 million.
So their total team,
their entire
in 7
team,
years has not kept over $765 million.
So, like, the one thing that this kind of screams out at me is, like, you know, a New York Mets must be a larger market that can afford this type of thing.
For sure.
But it's just ridiculous how, I guess, unbalanced the league can be when you have a Pirates team. That's... You know, correct me if I'm wrong. Pirates aren't a bad team.
Not bad.
They're not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't paid $750 million for their entire squad in the past 7 years, like combined. So that means last year plus the year before that plus all of that up to $750 million, and you just guaranteed this one player $750 million.
Yep.
Like, to me, that's just, you know, the power scales of the MLB.
The challenge I have.
It's crazy.
And I don't want to stay on this point because we got other things we got to cover. But I'm going to say this. There are 11 people on that field. So that means he has to have 10 other players that are at least decent enough to continue. They got to hit. They got to get on base. They got to score.
They got to be cheap.
But then the other part is you're not even factoring the fact that you have to have 5 rotating pitchers and a bullpen that can keep you in games. So one individual, yes, might get you 40 home runs, 120 RBIs every season, but if you don't pitch well, if you don't have a bullpen to back him up, and you don't have other players to produce, one individual to put all that pressure on him, and that's the other thing. I've seen big contracts, and I've seen what they do to people. Last time there was a big contract in baseball, I'm pretty sure it was Aaron Judge, and he struggled for the first half of the season. It's a lot of pressure on these players. So, I don't know. Maybe Juan Soto is not that guy, and he's going to be able to keep his head together. But, goodness gracious. I saw it, and I'm like, I'm really glad. I would be very angry if the Cubs would have gone out there and done that. Even how good of a player he is, I wouldn't want it. Wouldn't want it.
15 years for $765 million. Show him the door to the Mets.
Get him out. Yep. And I hope they never win a championship just to prove them right.
Wow.
And it's New York. Nobody wants New York to win except the New York fans.
Yeah, I can agree with that one. All right, let's move on to the NBA now, okay? The Hawks recently had gone and beaten the Lakers, okay? Which, no surprise, the Hawks have been doing pretty good lately. But listen to these stats. LeBron James So they lost 134 to 132 overtime game. Okay. LeBron James had 39 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists, hitting 6 3-pointers. Anthony Davis had 38 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. So almost 2 triple-doubles right there.
Yep.
And then the next best player statistical-wise on the Lakers was Gabriel Vincent with 12 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals. They still lost with 2 players almost having triple-doubles to a Hawks team with Trae Young scoring 31 points, 20 assists.
That's crazy.
That's ridiculous.
Yep.
20 assists. And then he had 3 rebounds. He was the one that ended up hitting the game-winning 3 in overtime.
Okay.
The next 2 statistical best on the Hawks was DeAndre Hunter with 26 points, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. And then Bogdanovich with 20 points, 6 rebounds, and he hit 4 3-pointers.
Which Bogdanovich?
It's the younger one.
So not the one that used to play for the Pacers?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. It's what? There's
him.
Boban and then there's Bojan.
Yeah.
And something close like
so.
that.
Yeah,
I don't know which one's which, but it's the younger one. He's the shooting guard one. He's not the power forward. So, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well, let's make one quick point. And I hate to make this point because you know how much I hate this man. But LeBron James, with those stats at his age, is... I gotta give it to him.
Yeah.
I mean, let's throw out the score of the game, anything else. The fact that he's, 41, 42?
42, I think.
He's scoring still almost 40 points, 10 rebounds.
Is he that old? I'm going to look it up.
He's passing the ball, so it's not like he's just going down and shooting it every single time. He's got 11 assists, and he's shooting well from beyond the arc. Now, it's not every
39.
game. So he's 39.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're the same age. I couldn't do that.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
It's impressive.
The one thing I will say, though, that you see a lot, especially when it comes to the NBA, is that if you want a player, if you're willing a player to have a great game, it can happen no matter how good, no matter how...
Explain what you're saying.
Because, I remember Kobe's last game. R.I.P. R.I.P. Kobe.
Well, that's different. They passed him the ball every time he went down the court.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you look at those other stats, who else did he have help from? Anthony Davis. Now, tell me something. If he and Anthony Davis were the only 2 ones that you're trying to get the ball to be successful, how would you do that as a coach? You would probably put LeBron James in and take Anthony Davis out so Anthony Davis can have a break. And while LeBron James is in, LeBron James is the dude. He's getting all the touches. He's getting all the points.
Well, makes you wonder, though, where his 11 assists were who they were to then.
Probably Anthony Davis.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Because there's going to be layover, of course. When they start the game, it's going to be LeBron and AD.
Right.
Probably towards the second quarter and then probably late third quarter, early fourth quarter. It's going to be a situation where they have one on the court, one not. I may be wrong, but that's just how I view a stat line like that. When you have 2 players who are obviously doing everything they can, then that means everyone else isn't doing much. You're going to continue to rely on those 2 players throughout the game.
Yeah.
But, that reminds me, like I was saying, Kobe Bryant's last game when he scored, 60, 50?
I thought he was I thought it was more than that.
Well, it wasn't more than 60. Because I think, it might have been 50. Because I remember Shaq said a quote that was
scored 60.
Scored 60, okay. Because Shaq said he told him to go out and score 50, and he's like, the mother effers went out and scored 60 on me. But, in that game, like you already said, they were passing him the ball. He had every opportunity to get to that point. And Kobe Bryant obviously was not in the prime of his career, even in that game. I mean, when you watched it, he was hitting some great shots. Yeah. It made you feel like it almost reminded me of Mike Tyson getting back in the ring with Jake Paul. It's like, oh, man, any swing, he can knock him out.
But he actually produced.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike Mike Tyson. But basketball is obviously different from fighting. But that just, like I was saying before, LeBron James, obviously you can't deny greatness. Getting a triple-double at 39 years old, I'm not trying to take anything away from LeBron. But if he is 39 years old, if he has Anthony Davis also getting a triple-double, and he is still putting up those type of numbers and they're losing, I would rather, like, just like every player that scores great statistics. We see it all the time. People scoring 50 points, scoring 60 points, and they still lose at the end of the game.
Right.
Would you rather have that great performance, or would you rather distribute the ball, get other people involved, and come out with a win?
Well, could it be a question, too, though, that he feels like he has to do that to keep themselves in a game? Because maybe other people aren't producing. You got Connect on your team, which he's young. He's, trying to get up there. I don't know how well he did in that game, but I mean, you got to give them a chance to produce. But at some point, I mean, this is my own fault, but at some point, I say the same thing. Well, I'm just going to do it myself because then I know I'm getting it done. And maybe he's the same way.
I don't think that's a way to win, man. There's no I in team.
Well, who else is on their team? Maybe they need to go after somebody that can help them out.
Let's get to that. That was kind of what I was going to start hinting at. So the Lakers are 8th in the West. They're 13-11. Now the trade deadline, it's a little far away, which we're going to get into some trade rumors here in a little bit. But with the Lakers, I mean, what do they need to improve? I think they need somebody on that team. Yeah. Now, what value do they have to give away? They have Austin Reeves. Yeah. He's a good player.
He was great last year. I don't know how well he's doing this year.
Well, I mean, the Lakers are 13-11. I don't think that anyone besides the main two have been doing too great. Besides, Dalton Connect, he's a young rookie. Yeah. He's in the running for Rookie of the Year. He's doing great. You also have D'Angelo Russell. You also have Hachimura.
Yeah, Hachimura should be your first option in that choice, I think, because he's almost like a Mathurin to where he has his hit and miss. Mathurin's doing really well this year, but Hachimura was kind of the same way to where you got to give him some time, but he's not consistent, but he's good enough to where he could add some value to a different team.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to move at least one of those players. I would stay away from moving Dalton Connect. Obviously, he's still a rookie.
I agree.
But Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, and Hachimura, I think,
I don't know what you're going to get out of them. That's the other question.
You got to get somebody. I mean, their contracts are fat to where they can get someone who has another fat contract somewhere. Yeah. Maybe they try to go after. Maybe they try to go after like a Paul George for the Sixers. The Sixers haven't been doing good. But I know they just signed him on a fat deal, but the cap space would even out because Hachimura, I believe, has a 4-year, 70, 80 million or something like that. D'Angelo Russell has like a 1-year, 20 million, something around that. So
it'd probably be easier to move on from if he's got a 1-year contract.
Yeah, which I believe, didn't they trade him away? He got drafted to the Lakers. They traded him away. He went through a circuit of different teams, and then they brought him back in. And I mean, he's still not producing as much, obviously, as they would want out of him. So I'm not sure, but Lakers are gonna have to do something. Yep. I think they have to do something as far as their roster.
Yeah, then give it to JJ Redick. He walked into a mess, and hopefully, I've always liked him as a player, liked him as a person. So hopefully, he can pull something together. Because I think this is his first coaching job.
Yeah, it's a tough job, too. I mean, who would volunteer for their first coaching job to coach LeBron James? Yeah,
such an ego-driven maniac that, it'd be hard to... He is.
You got a hater over here.
Yeah. You should know that by now.
Let's get into our next topic, okay? So the Mavs just beat the Grizzlies, 121-116. Now check this. Yeah. Check this. Mavs were trailing the Grizzlies by 12 with 8 minutes, 34 seconds left in the fourth. But the Mavs finished the game on a 27-10 run. Luka Doncic ended the game 37 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, shooting over 50% field goal range.
That's pretty good.
And so the final stat I just want to point out is Ja Morant, who was drafted in 2019. They're both the same age. They're both 25 years old. Ja Morant drafted in 2019. Luka was drafted in 2018. Ja Morant is 1-7 when facing Luka.
Why?
That's the question, isn't it?
I asked you. Give me an answer.
Well, obviously, the entire team has to be involved here.
Right.
I think the real question to ask here is, will Ja ever be able to either form a team or, do something to where he can get past Luka to get a ring? Because as long as he stays over there with the Grizzlies and Luka is over with the Mavs, that stat tells me he's going to have to do something.
Well, Grizzlies aren't a bad team. We'll throw that out there. We've talked about them before. I think they're at 14-7 right now. They've got a pretty solid record. They just added Edie to that. I think he's been producing pretty well. Hopefully he just continues to get better. I think they just need to keep adding pieces to that team. I hope he sticks around so he doesn't look like a team hopper like kind of some of these other players are.
Everyone is nowadays.
And then he just tries to build something there. I mean, obviously the team is stuck with him through his own egghead decisions that he's had here recently, or at least last year, whatever it was. But I don't know. I mean, it's not even that the Mavericks are that much better of a team than they are. I don't think. I think they're just, for whatever reason, it's kind of like the Steelers-Ravens. They have their number.
Well, I mean, let's keep in mind that the Mavericks did make it all the way last year. And so they are a great team. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, and then the Twin Towers in the middle.
They did get swept.
Yeah, but they made it out of a gauntlet of West teams that were fighting. Now, I will say, in my opinion, I think that the Timberwolves were the ones who were taking on the heavyweight champs over in the West early on. But the Mavericks made it all the way, and ultimately the Mavericks ended up, making it to the championship, take on a stacked Celtics team. I mean, consensus idea here was the Celtics were supposed to win.
Right.
If they would have even dropped 2 games in the finals, that's a failure of a year. They should have been sweeping teams.
Then they went 8 in a row. Because they beat the Pacers 4 games in a row. Then they beat,
Well, I believe, didn't they sweep the teams leading up to that too?
I think they might have lost one. Keep talking, I'll look at it.
Well, I mean, the Mavs are a stacked team, and so I think they're only getting better. Obviously, Luka, he's not going to decide to leave the Mavs. He shouldn't. He should be with the Mavs for a majority of his career. He's already seeing so much success there. But other than that, they're a young team. I mean, they got Derek Lively, who's a very young player. I think he's like 20 years old, and he's still upcoming. He's a great player. You got Kyrie Irving, who, I mean, he's not young, but he's not necessarily old. He's a guard. I think that guards probably have a little bit more longevity in the NBA, but I think he's only like 30, 31, something like that.
So they beat the Hawks 4 games to 2. They beat the 76ers 4 games to 3. Then they beat the Heat 4 games to 3. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Keep going.
I was about to say, that is not right at all.
It says 2020. Oh, I'm in 2023. That's the problem.
The playoffs are early 2024.
Never mind. We'll cut that out.
But they're a stacked team for sure. And I think that, Ja Morant, they are young themselves. They already have a lot of cap space divvied out to a lot of their players. But he's going to have to figure something out. He's going to have to figure something out as far as the team's concerned, adding another piece, or, maybe, I don't want to say it, maybe he does travel to a different team. Who knows? I mean, once his contract's up, he hasn't really proven much himself being on that team. What are his accolades? What has he won with that team? What has he done?
You could shop him and probably get some good stuff out of him.
Yeah, you could get something. You can get, a pick, or maybe you could find another player on the trade market that can immediately contribute to that team. But
the Celtics went 4-1 against the Heat, and then they went 4-1 against the Cavs, which that might be different this year considering how well they're playing. 4-0 against the Pacers, and then looks like 4-1 against the Mavs. So they did lose one.
So they had a relatively, and here's the thing, I believe in that entire, you said they faced Heat first.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler was hurt that entire series. They faced the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell was hurt that entire series. And then they go on to face the Pacers, and Tyrese Halliburton was hurt that entire series.
Yep, or at least part of it, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was out all 4 games, or 5 games. So it was kind of an easy path. That's why whenever they got to the championship, they were well rested. They had all of their players. I think the only person that was hurt with them was Porzingis. And so everyone, like I said, consensus idea was that they should be winning this. If they drop if it was a competitive series, that would have been an L. So But talking about the Mavs and, talking about Lakers with the trade talks and stuff, let's talk about Jimmy Butler. So there's rumors going around right now. I don't know how accurate they are because, the Heat themselves with Eric Spoelstra and Tyler Hero, they're kind of trying to direct away some of these trade rumor talks, it seems like. But
naturally, that makes sense.
But Jimmy Butler may be on the market. He may be currently being shopped around right now. He has a fat 1-year contract, and there's a lot of teams that could use him.
What is his contract?
I believe it's a 1 year, like $48 million, $42 million, something like that. So the two teams that are looking at him right now, the Warriors are actively looking for a superstar to add. So if he's on the trade block, the Warriors are looking at him. And then possibly the Mavs. Now that's more Jimmy Butler wants to go to a team that he thinks can win. And so he's eyeing the Mavs. But those are the two teams that could potentially get him. The Warriors, like I said, they're looking for any superstar. Another player who's on the rumor mill with them is Brandon Ingram. But I think that, in my personal opinion here, it's really a question of should Jimmy Butler go to a contender that is aging and on its way out the door just like him? Like, it's kind of like a last hurrah of the 34-year-olds. Let's get another championship. Or should he go to a Mavs team with a Luka Doncic, with a Derek Lively, and then also one older vet with Kyrie Irving? But that's kind of, like we just said, they made it to the championship last year. They could very likely do it again this year.
He's an interesting piece. He's still effective. He's still playing good basketball. He's somewhat staying healthy. I'm trying to think of from his mindset where he would want to go. Clearly he wants a ring. So, yeah. He thinks he's going to go to the best location where he thinks he's going to be able to get one. I don't think the Warriors are going to be that. I think they're a good team, but I don't see them as winning a championship as of right now. You've got several teams, I think, that are a little bit on the higher up that would follow through, and the Mavericks might be that. Could they go back to another championship? So, in my opinion, I would say that's the direction he should go.
Go with the Mavs?
I think so.
Interesting. Obviously, there's the question of, you're talking about what they're looking like right now, but obviously they would have to give something up to get Jimmy Butler, and then what would Jimmy Butler, how would he fit with them coming in there?
Right.
And, it is a tough question for sure. I think when it comes to the Warriors, they have a strong brand of defense already with Draymond Green. They lost Klay Thompson, who was a good perimeter defender. That's kind of the hole that they need to be filled right now. You still have Steph Curry out there scoring ridiculously. And I also think, they have Andrew Wiggins who can still consistently score. But if you add like a Jimmy is someone who could be on the court when Steph's taking a break, when Draymond's taking a break, and he can still try to consistently keep that scoring going.
Yeah. And
so I think that would fit very well as far as the whole game is concerned. When it comes to the Mavericks, I think, you already have Luka. Luka's going to score. That's what he does. When he's on the court, he's getting the ball, he's shooting the shots, he's driving the lane and passing it out. And when he's not on the court, they already have it set up to where Kyrie Irving is the dude. And, but when it comes between Jimmy Buckets and Kyrie Irving, I'm giving Irving the ball to go get a bucket.
Yeah.
So the way they would utilize Jimmy Butler, in my opinion, would be more of a utility player rather than a isolation and score type of player that the Warriors might use him as.
But where does he better have a chance to win the championship? That's the question.
Well, like I said, I think it would just depend on what that team's giving up to get him. Because, let's say, for instance, the Mavericks do try to shop around, and the Heat are like, okay, we'll take him, but you have to give us both Derek Lively and, I don't really know who else they have on their team that would be of value. Maybe like a Gafford or something.
Yeah.
But because they're losing those players, are they going to be the same team? Are they still going to have the interior force? When it comes to the Warriors, maybe they're like, okay, you have to give us Andrew Wiggins or you have to give us Draymond, which I don't think they would allow them to touch Draymond or Steph, really.
Yeah.
Just like the Mavericks wouldn't allow them to touch Kyrie and Luka. So that's kind of what I'm basing on, just the core people right there. But those role players, in my opinion, the Mavericks have better role players. It would be more enticing for the Heat to make a deal with them, but will losing those role players impact the team? So when it comes down to who has a better chance of getting a ring, I mean, I would probably still stick with the Mavericks just because we are in a scoring league and they can probably outscore the Warriors. But if you can pair up Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler with the defensive edge, and then you still have the greatest scorer to ever play the game in Steph Curry, I guess I should say greatest shooter, not scorer.
Yeah.
The greatest shooter with Steph Curry, I mean, that could be a much more well-balanced attack. Yeah. So, obviously, I don't know. I can't see into the future. I don't know who's going to be closer to getting a ring this year. I do think that, I'm not saying this is how he's thinking, but Luka Doncic is 25 years old. Kyrie still has a couple more years in the league. They may be at a point where it's like, okay, if we lose this year again, we have another shot next year. I think if you go to the Warriors, Steph Curry and Draymond are already knocking on the door of retirement.
Right.
Like, they can retire any moment. I think them getting a Jimmy Butler on their squad could be like a revitalizing thing. Like, okay, this is it. This is it. We thought it was it last year with Klay Thompson. He obviously wasn't doing it for us. We had to get rid of him. And that's the other player that the Mavericks have. They have Klay Thompson. And so, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I think the Mavericks, I completely forgot about Klay Thompson going over there. They already made their move to improve their team. If Jimmy Butler, that's one thing, though. Like, how would he fit in with that? Would you have him play the 4? You have Luka at the 1, Kyrie at the 2, Klay Thompson at the 3, and then you would have Jimmy Butler at the 4, and then one of their centers. I mean, I'm not sure. It's an interesting question, though. I'm very intrigued to see if they actually do shop him around and where he'll go. Final thing I'd like to say on this is Jimmy Butler is from Houston, Texas. So he's closer to his hometown if he does go to the Mavericks.
Yep. I could see him. He'll never do it. But could he go to the Pacers and be
I don't
productive?
think they have the money to pay.
They don't, and he would never do it because it's a small market. But he actually might fit in really well with that team, to be honest. He's got to be quick and mobile, and that's going to wear on him pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, you do have Ben Mathurin at the 3 right now. You do have, Pascal Siakam at the 4. So how would he fit in?
Well, they keep talking about moving on from Turner. So if Turner was gone,
I feel like they've been talking about that for 5 years now.
And they always say he's going to go to the Lakers, and then it never happens. So who knows?
Well, all right. I think it's time for our next segment. We're actually bringing on a new segment to this show.
Yes, we are.
It is called Phone a Friend.
This is Jeopardy.
Phone a Friend.
No, it's not
segment.
Jeopardy. What's that called? Who wants to be a millionaire?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So we're about to get into college football, and our first topic is going to be Army-Navy game. We are going to give a call to Marcus, who is my brother. He is an avid college football viewer. He loves his sports betting. He pays very close attention to a lot of the college games. So let's go ahead and give him a call, see what he has to say about this Army-Navy game this week.
He says he's ready.
Hello. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, so we are currently on the podcast, Marcus, and we have a question for you. Army-Navy game this weekend. Who's going to win it, and how tight of a game is it going to be?
Army and Navy. See, this is a good one here. It's a long-standing rivalry.
Yep.
Wouldn't say it's as chipped up to the Ohio State and Michigan rivalry. That's one of my favorites. But,
yeah, I think you're going to love the shirt that I'm wearing in this podcast, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure it's Michigan. Anywho, so this is a game I've kind of looked at for a little while. Might take a side myself on the betting end this weekend. But these two teams, for I would say the last 18 times that they've played each other, the last two seemed to go over. Well, actually, one was a push. The year before last year, it went over due to overtime. But these last 16 times before that these two teams have played, it favored the under. It's really interesting. Navy, their quarterback got hurt playing Tulane.
Oh.
They're really counting on him to come back this week. I'm sure they'll need him for this tough matchup with Army.
Yeah.
Both of these two teams, though, you can say, I mean, they've played an amazing season.
Yeah.
It gives hope to what the future looks like for these two. Army and Navy, the
rivalry.
Right, the rivalry, and I'm sorry, the word I'm looking for is for the servicemen.
Yeah.
Military,
It's exciting to see them, come out of nowhere, and both teams, and not just one, both teams, they kind of ran the table this season. Granted, their schedules weren't the most challenging in the world, but Navy had some good wins. I mean, they played Memphis, which was that was a pretty tough squad this year. I've seen them play some pretty good games and got some pretty good upsets. They beat them. Looks like 56-44. Both these teams got smoked by Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
But the one difference I'm seeing between these two teams is, Navy, they lost to Tulane 35-0.
Ooh.
Granted, that is the game that they lost their quarterback. I don't recall what quarter that he got hurt.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that played any influence on that at all. But, that just shows that, their defense couldn't hang with that Tulane team.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, Army, they went out and they got Tulane out of there. This Army team, they're the real deal. They're rushing the ball. Their running back, he's looking amazing. If I had to decide, man, I'm taking Army. I'm taking the 6.5. I think it's at 6.5 right now. Money line for Army is at like -245, which I hope no one would bet. But if I had to decide, man, I'm taking that 6.5. Granted, if the starting quarterback comes out for Navy, I'm looking for these two teams. They always play a really good game against each other.
Yeah.
We might be looking at a new year. It might be an over. The over's sitting at 38.5 points right now. And like I said, last season they pushed, I think, at 27 points. That's not too far off from 38. And with these two teams and their offenses this year, and, who's to say that doesn't go over this year, especially if they do get their starting quarterback back. And, I'm just looking for an exciting game.
Yeah,
That's my
absolutely.
take.
No, yeah, I'm definitely with you on the sense I think that it's going to be a high-scoring game. That's kind of my feeling as well. I mean, you've got Army at 11-1. I mean, that's an impressive record for somebody that used to be, and I hate to say this, but they used to be the joke of the college football because they ran like the same play every time they went down on offense.
Right.
It seemed like they'd run it to the left or they'd run it to the right or there was an option. I mean, it was one or the other, and now they've made themselves competitive. And I would ask, let me ask you this: do you think that they might adjust their schedule next year to maybe throw on a few more ranked teams, just to see how well they would play?
I would sure hope so. I mean, obviously, this all comes down to who are they keeping? Who's all coming back for next season? How serious are these two programs wanting to get into the college football world? I'm sure, obviously, they would love to be serious, but as well as I do, with a lot of these powerhouse schools, a lot of things come down to money. Sad to say, but it comes down to money. Who's going where? What players are interested in what school? I believe you have to be in the service to actually, go to these schools, right, and play.
Yep.
So, that plays a big factor as well. So, you don't want them to bite off too much that they can't chew, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I say, let's focus on finishing out this season strong for these two programs. They've done an amazing job. Salute to them. Thank them for their service, obviously, and let's see what next year brings.
definitely excited to watch it, and it's great to hear your analysis on it.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate the invite. Hopefully I can get up there to sit in with you guys on one of these future podcasts. I'm sure I would enjoy that a lot. You guys are doing an amazing job. I appreciate the program. I like listening to you guys' work and hearing your analysts on these games. If everybody hasn't subscribed to the channel yet, you should. It doesn't cost you a penny, and they give out some good information, some good insight, and some things you might not know. So smash that like button and subscribe.
Hey, we appreciate the promotion, man. All right, we're gonna let you go.
I'll see you guys later.
All right,
thanks, Maurice. No, I
right.
think it's a great analysis, and it goes into our next point of that game. I mean, there's only one game to watch this weekend, so you need to tune in. And I think this year, better than any year we've ever seen, you're going to see a competitive football game. Yeah. A lot of times you get to this game and everybody takes a weekend off. All right, we're gonna watch ice skating instead. But I think in this one, I think you watch this game, and I think it's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, and I think, like you were saying, in years past, this was a game that you would view as like a MAC championship. Yeah. It's like the battle of the bad teams. Who cares? Yeah. But no, I mean, Army finishing 11-1, Navy finishing 8-3. Mm-hmm. I mean, the big loss for both of them is Notre Dame, and that's a tough team.
That's tough, yeah.
And so I
mean,
think
they're challenging for the national championship. Yeah. And you're facing off against teams that are developing. So I don't think it's even a really good comparison to look at that, to be honest. But I mean, you got to give it to them. I mean,
it's going to be an entertaining. It's going to be an entertaining game for sure. I'll have to check it out.
I don't know if I've ever seen Army ranked before. I mean, maybe it has, but
I haven't.
My whole life, I don't think they've ever been ranked. And if they have, then it wasn't very long. But they're still 22 right now. I mean, I think it's impressive.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, hey, salute to the service too. Yeah. It's going to be fun traditions to see whenever that Army game tips off. Sure. They always fly the jets and all of the color guard people and stuff. It's definitely a cool sight to see.
Yep.
So let's get into the next one, okay? This is kind of like a two-part thing with how the championships games went last week. So we picked two teams that were obviously surprises, to say the least. The first one we kind of mentioned already was the Georgia-Texas game. Me and you both had Texas pulling this out. Yeah. And Georgia said, Yeah. Remember who daddy is. We're still daddy. Okay, Texas, you just got here to the SEC. We've been here. Yeah. All right? So I'll let you go ahead and talk about the game.
Well, there's a couple things to note right away. One is Texas had multiple chances to win this game. I mean multiple chances. And they just never capitalized. They never went down and they scored. And, I mean, I don't know. I can't equate it to anything except maybe Georgia's defense just stepped up. But you finished the half. Half was 6-3.
Yeah.
So everybody kind of expected, I think, a higher scoring game. They're going to be running numbers. People are going to be throwing touchdowns. And that just didn't happen. So, and then you have the opportunity where Carson Beck, Georgia's quarterback, goes down, gets hurt. It's on the last play of the second quarter. Mm-hmm. Last play, going into the half. He gets hit pretty hard as he's going forward. I mean, hurts his arm pretty seriously. And then you have their backup, Gunnar Stockton, that comes in.
And he's a dog.
Well, for whatever reason, and maybe, maybe it was the right thing for Georgia to where it gave them a little spark and said, hey, we got to get ourselves back in this game and actually start scoring some points and some yards. I mean, we got to get some yards.
Yeah.
Because Texas, I think they were almost at 300 yards by the end of the first half, and Georgia was less than 100. So, I mean, they were doing nothing. So, I mean, Ewers ends up throwing for 358 yards, but one touchdown.
Yeah, one touchdown, 2 interceptions.
That's just not going to get the job done.
I mean, here's what I think about it now. I watched this game, and then besides this game, I also watched a couple of the other kind of lower class. I don't want to say lower class, but lower like class. Boise State. I watched their championship game, and here's the thing. When you compare those two teams, like the score says something, the stats say something, but the eye test when you're watching these teams. Yes. I know that people were expecting that Texas offense and that Georgia offense to be blazing it up and stuff like that. But the defenses of these teams look like grown men. You go and you watch the Boise State game. You go and you watch the Arizona State game. You look at the defenses, they look like glorified high schoolers out there. Like the best of the best high schoolers, but they're at the college level now. When you look at the Georgia and the Texas defense, it looks like NFL rookies.
Yeah.
And I think this... I know I keep saying it every podcast, but the SEC is real football. When you have a team like Boise State, Arizona State, and I mean, I don't want to say it, but whenever I watch IU games too, they kind of fall into that category a little bit.
Well, we're about to find out.
We are about to find out. They're facing Notre Dame. But whenever I watch SEC football, it's just different.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's just different. And we have teams like Bama that didn't end up making it. You know what I'm saying? Bama's another team. You watch them play. Yeah. They look like grown men out there. They look like NFL rookies out there playing the game. Now, they fall short here and there. In my opinion, that's because they're facing other people who look like NFL rookies. Right.
There's a reason for it. It's not that they're just playing bad.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and I know we both picked Texas to win the game, but I'm glad that Georgia won, because I do think that, because if, let's just say they didn't, what would that have done to the bracket? Would they even have made it into the playoffs? And that's going to raise so many question marks, because they would have been at, I think, 4 losses at that point, and I don't know. So I'm glad they won so that they could get in, and then Texas is in as well. So, if they want to prove themselves and then they got to make it through the bracket, and they might eventually end up facing Georgia again. I mean, that's a possibility.
Can you recall which team got bumped out?
Well, Alabama was on the fringe, for sure. I don't remember who else was. I know Alabama was. Oh, Miami would be the other one.
Miami was still included in it?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I would much rather see Georgia. I'm going to look. I believe I had a picture of a bracket a while back.
But just to say that I'm glad Georgia won, so that kind of cleans up the bracket a little bit. We'll talk about the bracket later, but I feel like they did a good job piecing it together. And is that who it was?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a super updated one. I had like the week before this, and it was like a guessing at who's the next week. So I really don't know, but I am glad to see Georgia included in it, because in my opinion, last year it was clear like they were daddy of the NCAA football.
Yeah.
And this year they had kind of a slower start. There were some question marks in there, but I love for them to have the opportunity at least to try and go back towards that championship again.
Now, we could talk about the bracket later, but Georgia, because of that and because the SEC rankings and all that stuff, they ended up getting the a bye, which I don't agree with. I don't like that.
Georgia got the bye?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, IU is going to, and Notre Dame, they're going to end up playing Georgia. So they got to fix that. I heard multiple announcers this weekend say the exact same thing. Just because you win your conference championship doesn't necessarily mean you should get a bye. Like, you get automatic bids for certain things and rankings. It's so convoluted, for one thing, and it's just, I don't think it should be that way. So hopefully they fix that, but I love the fact that it's 12 teams anyway. I mean, I think that's
already improving for sure. The next surprise game, obviously, was Clemson beating SMU. Now, you had Clemson to win.
I did.
I did not. I have faith in SMU to get it done. I thought that the hype was real. And in all honesty, I mean, they almost got a strong push towards the end of the game. So check this. Clemson was up 31-14 going into the fourth quarter.
And they looked great.
SMU scored 17 unanswered points to tie the game up.
Yeah. So here's what happened at the end of the game, if you guys didn't see it. They tie it up 31-31. They kick it off, I think, with like 45 seconds left. The guy that did the return was not originally supposed to be back there. They lost a guy. So he was like a third-string fill-in, comes in, runs it all the way back, I think, past
the hero of the game.
Past the 50. They have one pass that they do that I think was like 10 or 12 yards. Guy ends up, and they kick a 56-yard field goal to win the game. And incredible game. But here's the other thing, and this is what it goes back to. It shows, one, again, I'm glad Clemson won because it puts them in. It gets them into the playoffs. But also, whoever was picking, they did a great job of keeping SMU in the playoffs because they certainly deserved it. I mean, even the Clemson coach said that team needs to be in the college playoffs because they're a great team. The fact that you scored 17 in a quarter to try to get back into that game and almost win it was phenomenal. Yeah. And you would have kicked Clemson out if you would have won. They would not be in. They wouldn't be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson, let's not forget, they're a team within the past 10 years. They've constantly been competitors for the national stage. And this is before the 12-team playoffs. Right. So to be able to put up a fight against them and only lose to a game-winning field goal, obviously they are contenders in that playoffs. Yeah. And we'll have to see what they do because they're facing Penn State up next, and they had another great game. They were really hanging in there with Oregon, which
they really did.
Oregon's a powerhouse team. Yeah. But let's go ahead and get into the bracket. So we're actually going to do our picks for the college bracket playoffs. Okay? Do you want to start off, or we'll go 1-1?
Yeah, go back and forth.
All right. So the first game, we have Tennessee versus Ohio State. The winner of that goes on to take on Oregon. Yeah. So who do you have between Tennessee and Ohio State?
Well, I'll tell you who I want, and I'll tell you who I think is going to win. And I don't know why I said that because it's the same team. I want Ohio State to win, even though I'm not a big fan of Ohio State, because I want to see a rematch against Oregon. Like, I am begging to see that rematch because they had a phenomenal game against each other earlier in the season, and I think it was 37-34. They ended up it was just back and forth, and they're two really, really good teams. Yeah. So I want to see that happen. But I do think Ohio State's a better team than Tennessee. Tennessee's had a great year. I'm not taking anything away from them, but I think Ohio State's going to win that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there. Not only, yes, I do want to see Ohio State go and take on Oregon again. That first game was great, and I think it was definitely Ohio State's game to lose. They lost that game. Whenever
they had chances to win.
Whenever their quarterback in the last game-winning drive ran the ball instead of passing it and then went to the ground and they ran out of time, that's a play he's probably been replaying over in his head. Yep. Another thing is that I think Ohio State is pissed off right now. Yeah. I mean, they just lost to Michigan. Mm-hmm. That kicked them out of the Big Ten championship. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have a lot to prove not only to the world but to themselves right now. And a lot of those seniors, it's their last ride on the team. It's been nothing but failure in their eyes for this season. They have an opportunity now to take that last ride to get all the way to the championship and get a victory, and I think they're going to take it dead serious. Yep.
So, to be honest, I'm almost glad that they didn't go to the Big Ten championship because then they would almost be facing Oregon 3 times. Yeah. So they faced them once. They didn't face them in the championship. I would rather see them face them in the playoffs. I really would, because then it's win or die. Yeah. I mean, you're in or out. So
it means a little bit more, doesn't it? Yep. Yeah. So, I'm going to take Ohio State in that to go on and take on Oregon. Let's go to the next one, Clemson versus Texas. Who do you got?
Well, I mean, I love the story of Clemson right now. I'm going to be rooting for them. I like both teams. I really do. I think Texas is a great team. Texas did not show up in that Georgia game like they should have. Again, you can equate it to Georgia's defense, but I just think offensively they just could not get the ball rolling, and I think they will this game. So I'll have to, as much as I want to see Clemson win, I think Texas will pull this one off, but I think it'll be a close game.
And so you think Texas is going on to take on Arizona State, huh?
I think so, yep.
I'm going to have to also go with Texas here. I think Clemson, they scored 31 points all the way up to the fourth quarter against SMU, and then SMU 17 unanswered. Yep. Now, if an SMU team can do that, a team like Texas, who's been number one in the league for a hot second, not number one, I guess Oregon's number one, but they've been up there in NCAA for the entire season, basically. And then they're also coming off a loss to Georgia, which they're probably pissed off about. Yeah. I think Texas is a dangerous team this week. I'm going to take them going on to face Arizona State, too. Yep. So next up, we got IU versus Notre Dame. The winner of that goes on to take on Georgia. I want to start off here. I'm going IU. I'm going IU, baby. Who's your pride? I'm going for the underdog. I think Notre Dame is not in the conference. I think they cherry-picked their opponents all season. And I think this IU team has what it takes to take on this Notre Dame team as the underdog and shock the world. Wow. So I'm taking IU to go on, take on Georgia.
Okay. Well, I told you when I first saw the bracket, I hate seeing two Indiana teams play against each other because, to be honest with you, when I really watch college football or college basketball, I don't have like a dead set team. I love Notre Dame. I've always been a Notre Dame fan, but I always root for all Indiana teams. So if Purdue was in it or IU's in it. So I hate to see that they actually have to play each other in the first round. But I've seen, I went to the Notre Dame Stanford game. I got to see them live. I've watched almost every game this season. They're just a really, really good team. Now, I'll tell you this. If IU could go and make a drive like they did on the first drive against Ohio State and do that consistently, they give themselves a really, really good chance of beating Notre Dame, because that drive was one of the best drives I've seen all season for them. And then they collapsed after that. But I mean, I hope it's close. I hope it's fun to watch. But I think Notre Dame's going to pull it off.
All right. So Notre Dame goes on to take on Georgia, huh? And then final one we have SMU versus Penn State. They are going on to take on Boise State. I think Penn State's going to handle business here.
Yeah, I kind of think the same thing. I think SMU's a good team. I think they're going to score. I do think it'll be close, but I think Penn State will pull it off.
Yep. Okay, so then that means next round, Ohio State. We both picked Ohio State taking on Oregon. Who do you got?
It's got to be Oregon.
It's got to be Oregon, huh? It's Oregon's year.
They're 13-0. I don't know how you stop them. And I'm just being honest. Like, I've watched several of their games this year, and offensively, I don't know how you stop their quarterback. I don't know how you stop their wide receivers. They have a really good defense. They're well coached. They have great uniforms. I mean, they got it all. So, I don't know. It's very hard to pick against them. So, I got to go Oregon. But I think it's a great game.
I'm going Ohio State. Okay. I think it's the revenge game. I think that no one has had an answer for Oregon. Yeah. Ohio State knows that. And like I've already mentioned before, they've had a couple of games this season, a couple of instances that have happened that have pissed them off for greatness. Yeah. I think they're going to take it out on this college playoff. So,
well, if they play like they did against Michigan, then Oregon's going to win by 80. So they need to pull it together and figure out what they need to do, because that was a poor performance by them.
I think they'll pull it together. I got faith in them. Next up, Clemson, Texas. We already said Texas. They're going on to take on Arizona State. Who do you got?
Texas. I don't even need to think about it.
Yeah, Texas is
Arizona State
dog walk on Arizona State.
I mean, they destroyed Iowa State, but it's not saying
it's
much.
Iowa State.
So, unfortunately, I don't give Arizona State a chance. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going Texas too. So then next up, you have Notre Dame, Georgia. Correct. I have IU, Georgia. I think I can speak for myself that Georgia is going to win. Who do you think between Notre Dame, Georgia?
I'm giving it to Notre Dame.
Oh,
I really do.
Okay.
I think I do believe that Notre Dame's a much better team than Georgia is. I won't say much better. I think it'll be a close game. But if Notre Dame plays like they're supposed to, and like I know they can, I think they pull that one off.
I think Georgia's defense, man, is just...
They're good.
Only SEC teams have seen a defense like Georgia. Only a Texas, only a Tennessee. Maybe you can give Clemson out of the ACC. I mean, those southern teams are different. Yeah. I think Notre Dame hasn't seen a defense like Georgia's defense.
Yeah. But Notre Dame's offensive line is top in the league. And so
top in the league facing who?
Well, whoever they face. And I think it'll be the same with Georgia. I mean, they're going to plan for lots of blitzes and lots of pressure on the quarterback. They're going to. I think that's the point. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think it'll be a great game, but I think they're gonna pull it off.
I mean, I just want to look up real quick who Notre Dame is taking on. So, I mean, you have Navy was their last game, Georgia Tech, Stanford, Louisville, Miami of Ohio, Northern Illinois, Purdue, Texas A&M.
Yep,
I'll give you Texas A&M.
First game of the year.
You know, but that's it. That's the only team that, in my opinion, I mean, also Florida State they taken on. Virginia.
They played USC.
And then, USC, Army, which USC is not, I don't think any of those teams besides maybe Texas A&M you could give it to can even come close to what this Georgia defense looks like. So, in my opinion, yes, Notre Dame's looked great, but that's just like saying Boise State looks great when you're facing the competition that you're facing.
We'll see.
And they're not necessarily to the level of a Boise State. They have faced better teams than that. They obviously have better recruiting than that, but I think Georgia's going to take it.
Okay.
And so finally, Penn State versus Boise State.
Penn State.
Yeah. I don't think Boise State. I'm sorry. I just don't think they belong. They look good against bad teams, to put it quite frankly. They just beat UNLV in the bowl or whatever. But I watched that game and it's like,
it wasn't even fun to watch.
Like I told you, it was like, it almost seemed like UNLV was like a senior high school team, like a really good state contending senior high school team, and it seemed like Boise State was like a JV college team for like Georgia. Like they could be the JV for Georgia.
Yeah. I had to look up what UNLV even stood for. I didn't even know.
What does it stand for?
University of Nevada of Las Vegas.
There you go.
I had no idea. Good for you. I didn't know there was a school in Las Vegas.
Okay, finally. So that means that...
Well, so that means you would have...
Ohio State versus Texas.
Yep.
And then on the other side, I would have Georgia versus Penn State.
Yep.
I'll just go ahead and say them both right here. I think Texas beats Ohio State.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Wasn't ready for that one.
No, I think Texas is going to have high-powered offense. Those Southern teams, man. When it comes to those Southern teams, I'm all in for this year. And then Penn State versus Georgia, I think, that's going to be a tough one. I actually think Penn State might shock the world with that one. I think, because here's the thing.
Heard it here first, folks.
Beck, the quarterback for Georgia, I mean,
he's got to be healthy.
Exactly. And I think if he can make it through the first 2 games.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's coming back for it.
Might be a little slow.
He's got a week and a half to
It'll be
recover.
competitive. That Georgia-Penn State game, in my opinion, that'll be one that I'm, like, watching intently. But, yeah, I don't know. That Georgia defense.
The Georgia to win the championship?
No,
we're not going that far.
No, not yet.
Okay.
So then after that point, I would have...
Texas, Georgia?
I would have Texas, Georgia again. And I think this time Texas gets them. I think it's Texas's year.
Texas wins the national championship.
Texas.
So put all your money on them.
Matthew McConaughey.
Wears the same jacket every time he goes to their game.
Mm-hmm.
No, I love it. I'm not knocking him. I love it.
All right. So for you got Oregon versus Texas.
Yep. Oregon wins that one.
And then you got Notre Dame versus Penn State.
Yep. And Notre Dame wins that one. So I think Oregon and Notre Dame in the championship, and I think Oregon wins it.
So it's Oregon's year, huh?
Yep. I just can't. I've seen too many of their games. I can't pick against them right now. I don't want to. I will tell you, I don't want to pick for them at all, but I just think they're too good.
All right, well, there you have it. That's our college bracket filled out. I have Texas winning it all. Isaac here has Oregon winning it all. I think, honestly, I had Oregon going out against Ohio State. I think if Oregon gets past Ohio State, then I think Oregon could be a team that could take on Texas.
Yeah.
So that's a good pick.
The main thing is, and I think they did it correctly in the bracket. I think all of these games are going to be good games.
Oh, yeah.
For the most part. I don't know about the Boise State side. I don't know about the
Arizona State. Yeah.
They might
Penn
surprise
State versus SMU.
They might surprise us. Well, SMU played a great game. They came back against Clemson. They really did.
Clemson wasn't even in the playoffs a week ago.
No.
I'm just playing.
They got it.
Just playing. All right, so let's go ahead and continue with our picks, which is our normal section of picks. So there's only one college football game this week, so we're just going to pick between that Navy-Army game. Other than that, we're going to pick 4 NBA teams and 4 NFL teams.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and start off Army-Navy. Navy's at a plus 205. They're at number 22 Army at a minus 250. Who you got?
Yep, I'm gonna go with Army. I feel like it's I would hope and believe that it's gonna be a competitive game. I think it'd actually be fun to watch. I'll plan to watch it, but I think Army's gonna pull it off.
I'm also gonna go Army here.
Yeah.
I think. They were just in the college playoffs not too long ago. Navy's lost 3 games. Their 3 games have been to Notre Dame, which Army shares that, but also Rice and Tulane. And as Marcus mentioned, Navy kind of has a questionable quarterback injury going on.
That's very true.
I'm definitely going to take Army there.
All right.
So going into the NBA tonight, which this game might, I think it comes on at 10.
It's at 9:30 is what it said.
9:30.
Yeah.
So it's coming on here in a little bit.
On TNT.
We got the Mavericks 16-8 at a plus 150 going to Oklahoma City to take on the Thunder, who are they're 18-5.
Yep.
And they're at minus 180 odds. So I'm going to take the Thunder, man. I think you can't go wrong when betting for the Thunder.
Yep. If this was in Dallas, I probably would actually pick Dallas, just because they have a good home court advantage. But I got to go Thunder as well. I think it'll be, like we kind of always address, it's going to be a competitive game, I hope. But that's our pick.
Okay, so Warriors are playing Wednesday. They're 14-9. They are plus 110 odds. They're going to Houston to take on the Rockets, who are 16-8 at minus 130 odds.
Yep.
I'm actually going to go with the Warriors here.
Okay.
I'm going Warriors. I think that the Rockets are good, but it still just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't sound right saying the Rockets will win, and especially against the Warriors. So I'm going Warriors.
I'm going to pick the Rockets. Again, I can think it's a home court thing. And they've been playing really good basketball. I mean, they really have. So I think they continue. They put a little pressure on Steph when he's coming down that court and not giving him shots that are easy. Not that he ever gets easy shots. But I think the Rockets, I think they get it.
All right. And then finally, I guess we have 4 this week. Friday, the Clippers, who are 14-11, are going on to take on the Nuggets, who are 12-10. I'm gonna go. I know the Clippers have the better record here, but I'm going Nuggets at 12-10. I don't like the Clippers. I don't really like them.
No.
I think the Nuggets are gonna be able to find some way to pull off that game. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout. But I have faith in Jokic.
I'm going to go Nuggets as well. I'm almost the same exact reason for you. I have no faith in the Clippers. It's like you never know what team's showing up. You never know how hard they're going to play.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of trust that they're going to play a good game at the Nuggets. So I'm going to go Nuggets as well.
I also think that Russell Westbrook, he plays for the Nuggets right now. He's on a revenge tour. So I think he'll do good there. And then finally for NBA, we have Grizzlies, who are 17-8, going on to take on the Lakers, who are 13-11. Both of these teams we talked about in the podcast,
Good.
Both of them on the negative aspect of things. I think Ja Morant's been tearing it up with the Grizzlies. I'm going Grizzlies here. I mean, they have the better record. I think they've been doing good. I know they're at Lakers right now, but as we talked about before, the Lakers really only have LeBron and AD.
Yeah.
So I'm going Grizzlies.
I think it's a competitive game. I think LeBron and AD probably both still have a pretty solid game. But, yeah, I don't think they outlast the Grizzlies. So I got to go Grizzlies at the Lakers. So,
all right. Okay, you want to go ahead and with
the Thursday night football NFL? We've got the Rams 7-6 at plus 114 at the 6-7 49ers at minus 135. Let me just make sure I point this out. If the 49ers lose, they have no chance of getting into the playoffs. So let's keep that in mind for our Thursday night game.
I I'm going to go with the Rams here. I think they have a lot of momentum after beating the Bills. I think they showed they can score. And if they can score pretty consistently with the 49ers, I think they'll be able to have a shootout and outshoot them.
That's a great pick, and I almost would move that direction. I think with the Niners knowing that they're going to be out, I think they're going to step it up. So I'm going to say 49ers, but I'm going to say it's not going to be an easy win. It definitely will not be an easy win. It's going to be tough for them.
Okay.
Second game, we got the Steelers at 10-3. They're at plus 195 at the Eagles 11-2. They're at a minus 238. Are you gonna stick with your Steelers?
You know who I'm going for. Come on now.
So you may write down the Eagles. Go
ahead. Steelers are gonna pull it off. All right. I know we're the underdogs. That doesn't scare us. We got the defense. All right. We got the team chemistry. We have the Mike Tomlin. I think Mike Tomlin deserves to be Coach of the Year. This is the year he becomes Coach of the Year, and his campaign starts when he beats these Eagles.
I'm going to be cheering for the Steelers. I'm going to be rooting for them, but I don't think they're going to win this one. I think the Eagles are going to win this one.
Well, you obviously don't know what you're talking about.
All right, so we'll see. That's going to be a great game, though, so definitely tune in for that one.
Oh, yeah, I will.
We also have a great game on Sunday as well. Packers at the Seahawks. Packers are 9-4 right now. They've been playing pretty good football. Minus 148 at Seahawks 8-5. They're at a plus 124. Who do you got?
I mean, Seahawks are the underdogs here. Packers have been looking great. Their run game has, this is a tough one because I'm really split between the Packers' run game and playing in Seattle.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. Seattle still has home field advantage, and it actually means something up there.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're a bad team. 8-5 is pretty solid. I think I'm gonna go Packers though. I think Jacobs is gonna do what he does ultimately.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a tough one though, man. But yeah, I'm going Packers.
You're going with who?
Packers.
I'm gonna go Seahawks actually. I think they understand how important this game is for them to still be considered in the playoff run. And the Packers have, again, we've seen them. They're good. They're a good team. They have a great quarterback. They're coached pretty well. But I think they get the home field advantage on this one. And again, I think they can't be 8-6 and try to be competitive. So they need to be 9-5. I think that puts them in the run.
All right.
Last game, we have the Bills, who are 10-3, offer a big loss against the Rams. They're actually the underdog at plus 120 at the Lions, 12-1. This should be a really, really good game, I hope.
This is tough. This is really tough.
Lions, Bills, oh my. What do you got?
I mean, look, the Bills just looked human against the Rams. Have to take that in consideration.
Yes.
The Lions are banged up on defense. You have to take that in consideration. But with that being said, they just beat the 9-4 Packers, who are they're a step behind the Bills.
Barely, but they beat them.
So, I mean, they do have home field advantage, and I think the Lions is one of those stadiums where home field advantage actually means something. And I think even with the Bills' loss, it's not like you can say, well, Josh Allen will be pissed off and he'll go out there. Like, what can he do better than he did last game?
Did everything he possibly
could. So I don't think it falls onto him. If it's really a Bills' defensive problems where they're getting into a shootout, I think the Lions' offense is going to happily oblige with that. So I'm going Lions. Yeah, I think Lions will get it done.
Okay. I'm actually going to go Bills. I know it's a tough one, and I'm back and forth on it, but I got to think, though, they're going to be upset that they lost that game because I know that they probably should not have lost that game to the Rams. They need to stay in the winning margin. I know they're 10-3, but they still need to stay up there to be competitive with the Chiefs. Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs have a couple tough games coming up, so they might even be able to say, hey, we might be able to get that number one spot. So I think they see this as an extremely important game. Not that they don't see all of them, but I think the Bills are going to come in and surprise everybody.
Hey, check this. Both the Bills and the Steelers at 10-3 this week. Both of them going in to take on the top teams of the NFC.
Yeah.
Whoever wins this week between those two is now second next to the Chiefs.
Right.
So this is a big week for football.
Really
I'm
is.
excited. It's going to be a lot of good games. Well, all right. I think that's all we have for this podcast. If you enjoy our content, please give us a like. Go ahead and comment what you think about anything we said today, or maybe about how we are doing as podcasters. Who knows? Whatever you want to say. Go ahead and share this podcast with anyone who's interested in sports. And finally, please give us a sub on YouTube. Every sub goes a long way, and it'll give you better access to all of our content. That's all. Say peace out to the people, Isaac.
Peace out to the people.